Hello, I'm Oliver. In our previous video, we discussed Samuel Huntington's book, Who Are We? The Challenges to America's National Identity. In that book, Huntington gave a clear answer to the question of American identity. The American character, what Thomas Jefferson called the American creed, is essentially the Protestant ethic combined with British traditions. America remains the most religiously devout nation among world powers. At its founding, 98% of Americans believed in God, and even today, an impressive 85% still do. This remarkable statistic shows why to understand America, we must start with understanding its religious foundations. In our previous discussion, we noted that Huntington identified WASP, White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, as the core of American culture. Regarding the WS components, White Anglo-Saxon, although historical tensions run deep, they're gradually being resolved. The current challenge in America involves the P, the influx of Hispanic Catholics who are challenging the central position of Protestantism. Why is Protestant doctrine so crucial to America's identity? Today, I'm bringing you Russell Kirk's masterpiece, The Roots of American Order, which brilliantly answers this question. Russell Kirk is widely regarded as the intellectual godfather of modern American conservatism. When we talk about conservatism, we're talking about right-wing ideology, opposing big government while championing market economics, rejecting judicial activism in favor of judicial restraint, preferring small-scale republicanism over broad democracy. To borrow Isaiah Berlin's famous metaphor, the left is like a hedgehog, while the right is like a fox. The fox knows many small things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. Is Kirk a fox? Not at all. He's the quintessential hedgehog. So, why would a hedgehog be revered as the intellectual mentor of American conservatism? To understand this, we need to identify conservatism's primary opponent, rationalism. Rationalism treats the world as if it were a math problem with one and only one correct solution. This solution must possess mathematical precision, commensurability, and transferability, like the certainty of 5 greater than 3. Rationalism uses these principles to replace faith in God. The death of God became the landmark signaling humanity's entrance into the modern era. To rationalists, reason shines like the sun, illuminating everything equally. Rationalism embraces universal truths and enthusiastically endorses top-down institutional design. Conservatives oppose these concepts. Logically, there are 2 paths to challenge rationalism. One argues that rationalism cannot replace God, that God isn't dead. This is Kirk's position. The other path contends a human society is far too complex for any top-down, one-size-fits-all solution to work. This second approach is represented by Friedrich Hayek. Let's first explore the fox-type conservative, Hayek. Hayek criticized rationalists who treat the world as a simple math problem like 3 + 2 is equal to 5 for their extreme arrogance. When he received the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1974, his acceptance speech was pointedly titled The Pretense of Knowledge. Hayek condemned bureaucrats who sit in offices calculating output and setting prices for millions of products, believing their prior, top-down planning would outperform free markets. This, he argued, exemplifies the dangerous pretense and hubris of rationalism. He also criticized officials at the Federal Reserve, central banks, and Treasury departments who implement quantitative easing one day and raise interest rates the next, believing they can engineer specific economic outcomes through monetary policy. This, too, Hayek maintained, demonstrates rationalism's pretense and hubris. So what distinguishes hedgehog-style conservatism from fox-style conservatism? Let's use abortion as an example, a particularly contentious issue in America. The controversy stems from fundamentally different values. Liberals advocate for women's rights, believing women alone should decide about abortion without external interference. Conservatives view fertilized eggs as life created by God, making abortion equivalent to murder. These opposing viewpoints fuel the ongoing debate. But divisions exist not just between liberals and conservatives. There are significant splits within conservatism itself. Religious conservative justices advocate prohibiting abortion, while non-religious, fox-type conservative justices who value spontaneous order oppose state interference. On abortion issues, fox-type justices often side with liberals, though for entirely different reasons. Consider a concrete example. In the early 1970s, a landmark case, Roe v. Wade, saw the Supreme Court rule that Texas's abortion restrictions were unconstitutional. When William Rehnquist became Chief Justice, he was determined to overturn this decision. Rehnquist, whom we discussed when covering the oath, the Obama White House and the Supreme Court, was firmly conservative. During his tenure as Chief Justice, the conservative to liberal justice ratio reached an impressive 8-1. Yet surprisingly, when Rehnquist sought to overturn abortion legalization, he couldn't secure even 5 votes from the 8 conservative justices. Why? Because among these conservative justices were both hedgehogs and foxes with fundamentally different philosophies. To summarize, American conservatism divides into 2 main camps. Russell Kirk represents a hedgehog camp, with God as its cornerstone. Friedrich Hayek leads a fox camp, centered on spontaneous order. Let's delve deeper into Hayek's ideas. Hayek didn't invent the concept of spontaneous order. Physicist Ilya Prigogine had already discovered that in complex, far from equilibrium systems, order emerges spontaneously. Hayek brilliantly applied the scientific theory to human society, languages, economic activities, moral values. Hayek saw all these as prime examples of spontaneous order. What common features, though, these phenomena share? I believe there are 3. First, they're incredibly complex. Second, despite their complexity, they initially develop from simple rules. Language follows deep grammatical structures. Economic activities vary wildly, but all pursue profit. Moral concepts differ across cultures, but often reflect the golden rule that Confucius expressed as, "Do not impose on others what you yourself do not desire." In other words, order doesn't emerge from chaos, but must originate from an initial meta-order. Third, secondary orders must conform to the meta-order. The relationship between meta-order and subsequent orders resembles Wilbur Zielinski's theory of first effective settlement. The first settlers profoundly influence all who follow. Recognizing human society's immense complexity, Hayek criticized all grand theories claiming universal applicability. His Fox-style conservatism can be distilled into 3 principles: active restraint, universal skepticism, and cautious pessimism. Active restraint means avoiding hasty social transformation, rejecting excessive force, and resisting the temptation to constantly start from scratch. Universal skepticism means acknowledging one's own fallibility and rejecting claims of universal solutions to complex problems. Human beings are inherently diverse, complex, changeable, and often contradictory, making society resistant to mathematical precision, reducibility, or predictable cause and effect. Finally, there's cautious pessimism. Why pessimism? In nature, invasive species, climate change, and other factors disrupt ecosystem balance. When balance eventually returns, the ecosystem's quality often deteriorates. Downward degradation is the norm. Improvement is rare. This applies equally to human societies. Today's ideology, tomorrow's utopian vision. These hedgehog big ideas typically make society worse, not better. Hayek advocated bottom-up spontaneous order. While he acknowledged that spontaneous order requires a meta-rule rather than emerging from chaos, he maintained that this meta-rule isn't singular or universal. For instance, the meta-rule of economics is profit-seeking. The meta-rule of morality resembles a golden rule. The meta-rule of language is what Noam Chomsky called deep grammatical structure. In Hayek's view, meta-rules function like anchors on ships. As long as the anchor is heavy enough, it works. Every ship needs an anchor, but with many ships in the world, there are many different anchors. This is quintessential Fox thinking. So how does Kirk, the hedgehog-type conservative, differ from this approach? I'm Oliver, and I'll see you in our next video.